Hello, welcome back to Expressive Arts. Um, I apologize again about my camera not working. I did try to adjust the little plug-in thing, but it didn't work. So sorry. But I need to get this recorded so that I can open up the week for you guys so that you have it. So I do apologize. You can't see me on here, but hopefully at least you'll be able to see the PowerPoint. Um, okay. I'm I'm gonna go for it and hope that it records okay. All right, so expressive arts. In this lecture, we're looking at the role of play. So play is the answer to how anything new comes about. And that's a quote from Piaget, who we've heard a lot about in this class already and in other classes that you've taken. But we're really looking at how important play is in the early childhood classroom. Um, so we're going to take a look at the observation at the beginning of chapter 3 on page 69. And I'm just going to go ahead and read that to you. And again, hopefully you've read your chapters. If not, go ahead and pause this lecture and read through your chapter. Um, it's important that you do that. Okay, it's important that you get everything that you possibly can out of this class. I know it's more time consuming to have to read the textbook, but that's how you're going to learn everything that you really need to know. Okay. Um, so pause if you haven't read. If you have, thank you for that. And let's continue on. So in this observation, Nikki, 14 months old, and her mother were visiting in the home of her mother's friend, Loretta. When they first arrived, her mother and Loretta played with Nikki and encouraged her to participate. They asked Nikki to touch her nose, and they touched theirs. They continued with the game for several minutes. As time passed, the women began to talk to each other about adult topics, no longer involving Nikki in the conversation or interacting with her. She quickly tires of the adult talk and of being consistently ignored, so she begins to toddle around the room, searching for something interesting to do. She rummages through a toy box and looks behind the couch, but is not intrigued by anything she finds. Finally, she discovers a small scrap of fabric on the floor near Loretta's craft materials. She's very interested in the fabric and begins to explore the texture, smell, and appearance. After careful examination of the scrap, she climbs up onto the couch with the tiny piece of fabric in her hands. She carefully rubs the fabric between her fingers, smells it, and closes her eyes. Next, she pretends to sleep and snores and makes the zzz sound. After a few moments, Nikki opens her eyes and laughs. So, what do you think about that? Um, do you think that that was creative? Do you think that that was something that we typically see with young children when they're with parents and parents' friends? Um, Could the parents been a little bit more active? Yes, of course, but was it good for the child to explore the environment on her own and see what she discovered? Yes, that's good as well. Um, she's very creative by like noticing how soft the fabric was and how she enjoyed it and it would make her sleepy, or it would be a good thing for a blanket to be made out of or something like that. So um, think about that. Think about the creativity that we saw, or maybe the lack of creativity that we saw there. We need to make sure children's environments are welcoming and that there's plenty of opportunities for them to explore different materials, right? Does it always have to be some like fancy, engaging toy? Not necessarily, right? So think about what you have in your classroom or what you've seen in other classrooms and think about how you could kind of encourage more creativity or more outside the box thinking with the young children in your room. All right, let's look at the historical perspective. How has play been perceived at different points in time from ancient civilization to the present? So we're gonna look at the role of play, but we're gonna look at it like through time, okay? So according to Plato, the most effective kind of education is that a child should play amongst lovely things. So even way back in ancient civilization times, um, it that idea of the environment being important was recognized. All right, so let's look at qualities of play. Intrinsically motivated, right? We want them to be motivated to play, not be bribed to go and play. The child should freely choose play. It must be pleasurable. If it's not fun, it's not really play, right? It may be non-literal or symbolic, like make-believe play, and children engage in make-believe play very frequently. It should actively engage the child. It should keep them engaged and interested. All right, so some of the theories of play, the surplus energy theory by Spencer. So he believed that children just had so much energy that would build up over time that they just had to play to get some of that energy worked out. And we can kind of see that sometimes when we have too much downtime, quiet time, seat time, children get restless, and we can tell that they just need to move, right? They need to do some movement activities. They need to have some creative outlets there. Also, the relaxation theory by G.T.W. Patrick. So children need to be able to have that time to participate in play to help them relax, to help them calm down from having all of the requirements that we put on them. We have to get through this, and then we have to get through this, and then we have to do this, right? They just need time to just relax and play and enjoy themselves. The practice theory by Carrie Gross. Think about the young children in the house area. Maybe they have the baby dolls out and they are dressing them or feeding them or just holding them, patting their backs. It's practice, right? They're learning how to be good parents in the future, hopefully far, far future. But it's everything that they do is practice. It's all about learning skills. Think about some of the things that we've learned about Maria Montessori and how her work was all about helping children build those self-help skills. Well, it's all practice, right? They practice with everything that we have in the classroom environment. And then Freud's pleasurable principle, of course, just something children need to do to find, to be happy and find pleasure. They need to have that time to play. So think about the different theories of play, but then think about, regardless of which theory, everyone agrees that play is necessary. It's so important to allow children to have that time to make sure that they are getting that time and the space for play. All right, so think about Erikson and the psychosocial theory. Well, children learn from each other and from us as they're doing, but they need practice. They need that time to have free choice time to work on things and learn to interact with other children and other adults as well. The cultural evolution and developmental progression. So autochasmic play is children play, they're very egocentric, they're very self-centered when they're very young. And so they play with themselves, they might play with other people, they might play with things. But as they grow and develop, that kind of broadens and they begin to learn how to be more cooperative in their play. Microsphere play, the small objects and toys, they're just playing with whatever's right there in front of them. And then macrosphere play is playing with more and sharing with other children and really interacting and cooperating with other children. The theories of play. So we have Piaget's constructivist theory. We've talked before in Intro to Early Ed about sensory motor in that stage where children are learning through their senses and they're learning about their environment. They're moving around and touching everything, seeing everything. This is really a functional type of play. It's like that first stage where they're just learning about themselves and about their environment. And then pre-operational would be more symbolic, where they begin to participate in pretend play, dramatic play. Construction play is when they begin to build things. There's an image here of a child with blocks, but it doesn't necessarily need to mean that it has to be building with blocks. It's building anything, right? Playing with Legos, putting puzzles together, creating a painting, right? Constructing something, and then games with rules. So whether that's board games, Candyland, Chutes and Ladders, those types of things, or whether it's outdoor games where they're playing some kind of chase game and they're creating their own rules. Maybe they're creating rules in the dramatic play area. Who gets to be the mom, who gets to be the child, those kinds of things. Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. Remember, children are learning through the scaffolding of other children and adults, and that zone of proximal development. We're never going to get away from those terms. So if you don't have those down at this point, you really need to go back in your textbook and make sure that you understand what those terms are and how they apply to play specifically in this instance. Cognitive adaptation, Bruner, were like problem solving. So they're really thinking things through and they're playing, but they're coming up with ideas and maybe it's more rules that they need, but they're really doing some problem solving there. The theory of the mind, the play helps develop perspective and abstract thought. Brain development, experiences of play are essential to the development of neural pathways. So as you're looking through all of this, think about it. Play is just essential, no matter which theory you're looking at, whose idea it is. I mean, everyone is in agreement that play is essential. It's an essential part of a child's growth and development. Play is an important vehicle for developing self-regulation, as well as for promoting language, cognition, and social competence. And that's a statement from NAEYC in their position statement. Benefits of play in the curriculum. HighScope is a play-based curriculum. A creative curriculum is fairly play-based. What are some other curriculi that you have encountered in your observations? I know that locally in Nebraska, a lot of places, public schools in particular, will be using that creative curriculum because of the Teaching Strategies Gold assessment piece, which is very handy. It can follow the child from one school to another if they move. So that's very understandable. But what other types of curricula have you encountered? And maybe you haven't, and that's okay. But think about that. That might be something you might want to do some research on to find out what else is out there. Montessori-based curriculum is honestly, it's pretty fascinating to study. It's very different than a lot of what we see. We have in our local classrooms and programs, we do see pieces of Montessori curriculum or ideas, but like the fully developed Montessori classroom just looks very different than what we typically see locally. Playfulness, sensory exploration, egocentric speculation, fantasy, exaggeration, magical powers, and personal experimentation. These are all like trial and error in play. They need the opportunity, they need the time to explore these different ideas. Consider physical spontaneity, social spontaneity, cognitive spontaneity, that kind of creative problem solving that we want to encourage, a sense of humor. Play just helps to manifest joy. So really think about when you're looking at your own classroom or you're going to observe, how much play are you actually seeing? How much time do children really have to just enjoy play? All right, Mildred Parton's stages of play, and these are important. Unoccupied behavior, they're really not doing anything. They're not involved in any kind of play. They're not watching others play. They're not doing anything. A lot of times we might see this with our youngest infants. Sometimes we might see this with an older child who maybe isn't feeling great that day, or there might be some other issues going on, in which might be a cause for concern, right? Onlooker play would be a child watching other people play, but they're not participating. Maybe they're still kind of thinking about how to invite themselves into the play. Maybe they're waiting for the other children to ask them to play. But onlooker play, they're just watching at that point. Solitary play, they're just playing by themselves. They're not looking to play with other children. They just are happy with what they're doing. Parallel play, maybe two children kind of side by side or near to each other, maybe doing similar tasks, but they're not really communicating back and forth or cooperating or talking or anything. They're just playing. They're doing their own thing, but they might just be doing something that's similar or nearby. Associative play would be similar to parallel play, where they're be doing similar things and they're chatting back and forth and they're communicating and there's some socializing going on there, but it's not cooperative play yet. It's that stage before they actually begin to do something together. So for example, parallel play would be each has a set, like a pile of Legos, and they're doing their own thing. With associative play, each has a pile of Legos and they're kind of doing their own thing, but they're chatting back and forth and maybe pointing out different ideas to the other, what they might do, or if they're not sharing the Legos. Okay. Cooperative play would be they're taking both piles of Legos and putting them together to make something bigger and better and more beautiful, because they're working together to do more. Okay. So those are the differences in the stages of play. And I highly recommend remembering those. So you might want to go back and study those before your quiz. Sociodramatic play, consider Smolansky's 6 elements of play on page 82 in your textbook. Let me find that real quick. Yeah, this is under the sociodramatic play section, talking about Sarah Smolansky's work. The child takes on a role, they substitute an item for a real object, make-believe play, and it goes on. Very valuable information. I recommend that you take the time to go back and look through that. And again, that's on page 82 in your textbook. Play environment. Look at the time. How much time do they have? Look at the space. Do they really have enough space in the area that they're most interested in working in to really do it justice? So if they are wanting to play in the block area, but you only have a space in your block area for 1 or 2 children, and you only have a few blocks out, well, that's not going to be very good, right? So look at the play materials. Are they culturally appropriate? Are they meant for an individual or a group, or can it be sometimes individual work, sometimes group work? Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here, and we will pick back up. If you need to take a break, go ahead and take a break. If you do not, if you don't need a break, I will see you in the next lecture.